All right, I think we're just gonna go ahead and start. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. We're basically all over the world right now, and so we're hosting here from Space Base in New Zealand, but our speakers are from Europe and then also from Australia. I think what we're going to do right now, so we have about an hour and a half, and we have two speakers talking about marketing and PR. And we're basically going to split the session into two, so about 45 minutes for Remco, and then about 45 minutes for Suk as well. So because we have people that are new to GSEN, yeah, there's people that are actually members, so welcome again. But there's also people that are joining us for the very first time. So I'll just give a little bit of introduction about what GSEN is about, and then we'll sort of like go from there. All right. So GSEN, the mission and vision of GSEN is really to empower space enablers. So our main focus here is to help nascent countries who do not have a space ecosystem and a space industry to actually catch up to the rest of the world. And we do that directly through projects that GSEN kind of like takes on and initiatives that we do. And so at the moment, these are just GSEN by the numbers. So we are about 68 members, 26 organizations, 38 countries in 6 continents. And so as an example, where some of the most of the organizations are like on the map, this is sort of like where we are. And then, as I mentioned, we at the moment we have 2 initiatives. One is not as a knowledge base, so it's a repository of a collection of all of the information that potentially what a space enabler or a space ecosystem builder would need. And so right now it's in a Google site that is also powered by a GPT. And it's still in its early phases, and so feel free to kind of like look at it. Also, we were always looking for resources, and so if you have links or documents that you think that would help, and especially if you have an ecosystem, we would love to add those countries as well that are not in the resources. And then the second one is a mentorship program. So also we've been piloting this since November, and again, we're basically connecting mentors with mentees, so space enablers that have been doing this for a long period of time to those that are just basically starting. So at the moment, we have 5 countries, so Timor-Leste, Mexico, Costa Rica, Bolivia, and Rwanda. That we've been working on. And so, yeah, if you're a GSEN member, it's great. Would love to get you more involved as well, especially in these 2 initiatives. But if you're not a GSEN member, would love to have you as a member, and I can talk about that later on as well. So, okay, so let's kick off. And I just want to introduce our speakers as well for this particular session. So the motivation for this session is because we do have a mentorship program. All of the webinars that we're trying to do right now have all come out of the needs of the mentees, and marketing and PR is certainly one of them. So we'll start off with Remco, and I'll introduce him, and then I'll introduce Suk kind of like later on. So Remco Timmermans is the Chief Marketing Officer and officer of EmTroniX and Anywaves, a global satellite antenna and RF electronics manufacturer with locations in Luxembourg, France, and the US. Remco is also the owner and CEO of Space Agenda, the global space industry events calendar, and member of course, of GSEN. He is the chair of the IAF Space Education and Outreach Committee, and Symposium chair of the IAC E1 Space Education and Outreach Symposium. Finally, Remco is a global faculty member of the International Space University, where he will be a team project chair during the upcoming Space Studies Program SSP 2026 this summer, which is going to be in Strasbourg, France. So welcome, Remco. I'm going to just stop my share.
you. Thank you for that long introduction. I should really take it easy, I think, with all my activities. Let me share my screen here. All those buttons changed now. Oh, here, share. Here we go. And I'll just share my entire screen and move to my presentation here. All right. Well, I'm assuming this works. You can all see my first slide. Welcome everyone to this special session about marketing and PR. And to me, this is an important session because as a marketeer, I suppose I have to say this, but a lot of the success of space organizations, be it commercial entities or be it NGOs or be it any organization, starts with the marketing activities. And I will explain hopefully in the next 30 to 40 minutes why. I have a lot of information. But bear with me. I'll try to go through really quickly. And there's a few key concepts I think that are important that I will pass. But let me start by telling you a story. And this story is about a little 10-year-old boy back in 1981 in the Netherlands, sitting between his parents on the sofa and watching this thing that you see in this image. This is the very first space shuttle mission, STS-1, the 12th of April, 1981. Exactly 20 years to the day, 20 years after Yuri Gagarin launched into space. And this triggered a lifelong passion for space for this little boy who was always interested in aviation and in technology. But seeing this, two guys getting into a brand new launcher system that had never been tested in space before, getting into this space shuttle and launching to space opened up a new world for me. Because, of course, this little boy was me. Now, a lot happened after that. This passion for space was sort of inborn from that moment onwards. But I was sort of discouraged a few years later when this little boy was 17, 18, deciding on career options, going to the local aerospace university, which in my case is the Technical University in Delft, the aerospace faculty. He went there very excited about new opportunities and new possibilities, and he came home very disappointed, very demotivated, very dissatisfied. Because the story they told him is if you want to study aerospace engineering, you better love math and physics because this is a math and physics course more than anything else. And the first 3 years of your course will be pure math and physics, and only in the last part of your study, you will learn a little bit about aviation structures and if you want, a little bit about spacecraft. And as it happens, I am not very good at math and physics. So I was really discouraged. And I came home thinking, okay, what am I going to do now? Because my passion for space, my career for space is just not going to happen. Um, and I chose a different career path. I studied business and management, marketing, and I worked in the IT industry. And it wasn't until through my work in the IT industry, I worked for a company called Hewlett Packard. Maybe you've heard of it. They make computers and printers and some stuff. Um, and I had a great career in that company for almost 20 years. And it wasn't until within the company we started to experiment with internal communication systems that grew out to be more public, that grew out to be known as social media. And it wasn't until the upcoming of Facebook and Twitter and systems like that that I started to get back in touch with people who had a similar passion for space. And lo and behold, some of them actually worked in the space industry. And some of them actually did not have an aerospace engineering background. So they made me think. And in 2011, quite a few years after this picture, I ended up being invited to what was called then a NASA Tweet Up. A NASA Tweet Up is an event where NASA brings in its biggest fans, online fans, and invites them to behind the scenes things that are happening at NASA. And in my case, this was the STS-135, the very last space shuttle launch, Space Shuttle Atlantis, the 6th of July 2011. And this was an important moment for me because this kind of brought things 30 years after STS-1. This brought things full circle. And I was there, and actually I got to meet Bob Crippen, who was one of the crew of STS-1. He was one of the people who sat down at the table with us, telling about the history of the space shuttle and how this was all coming to an end with this very last launch. And to me, even though that was a great event, technically there were a million people at the Cape watching this launch, but to me this was a moment where, for the first time, I met the space community. And they said, Remco, what the hell have you been doing the last 30 years? No, you're not an aerospace engineer, but you have different skills. You have a different background that the space industry needs as much as any other industry. You're a manager at Hewlett Packard. Why are you not a manager in the space industry? And I was thinking, my God, these people are right. There's so many people walking around here that work in the industry that are not an aerospace engineer. And that was a big, how should I say that, moment where things in my mind came round, and I quit my job that year and I joined the International Space University to kind of reset my career with this new notion of, hang on, you don't need to be an engineer to work in space. And I've never looked back since. So here I am. I'm a proud space marketeer, doing all sorts of cool stuff. And of course, it looks very cool. As you can see in these images, this is a meme that was popular about 10 years ago. I think memes look different nowadays, but this is how memes, online memes started out, I think. And showing all sorts of cool things and how people see the space industry and how people see the role as a space marketeer. But obviously, what I really do is what you see in the bottom right-hand corner is just like most of us sitting behind my computer and doing my daily work. But I work in an industry that does all this cool stuff. And I'm not an engineer. So how wrong was I? And how big an influence has that realization been in what I'm doing right now? So right now, if you're not connected with me, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I love maintaining a big network and talking to space people. But these are all the logos and even a few more that Emily mentioned in the introduction. Scan the QR code, goes right to my LinkedIn profile. But yes, on a daily basis, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for a company called Anywaves and a company called EmTroniX. They recently merged, a Luxembourg and a Toulouse, France-based a company that makes space electronics, makes radio frequency equipment. Now, again, as a non-engineer, I know very little about electronics. And what they say is, especially the radio frequency part of space electronics, is the black magic of how spacecraft work. And again, I am not an engineer, I'm a marketeer. And I play a very important role in this company, now leading the marketing and communication efforts. So the message of this, and you'll see that throughout my presentation, and I'll speed up from here onwards, but is that yes, space is built around STEM roles, about all these engineering roles, but we should definitely look beyond that and make sure that the industry does not have too much of a STEM impression, because there's a place in space for all of us, and I'm the living proof of that, albeit 30 years late. So let's get into the meat of what I want to talk to you about in the next couple of minutes. First of all, what is marketing? Okay, marketing is a big field that drives much of the economy, not just in space, but of course everywhere. And the official definition is a rather dull one, but it talks about the activity or business of promoting and selling products or services, including market research and advertising. That is kind of the official Oxford Dictionary definition of marketing, which, if you're not a business person, can be kind of meaningless. So to me, my personal definition is much simpler. It is marketing is making sure that the right people know that you exist. It's as simple as that. Marketing, the role of marketing is make sure that people, preferably the right people, know that you exist. And that's what it's all about. And when people know that you exist, and when people see the relationship between you and between yourself and the organization, people get engaged with it. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means moving on. Traditionally, this is how I learned marketing in school a long time ago, as you will now understand. But it's about 4 Ps: product, place, price, and promotion. And what you see in all these descriptions is that all these 4 elements relate things that a company does or an organization does to its customers. Now, this is a very commercial definition, but marketing is about connecting people outside the organization with people inside the organization. And you do that through defining products, to defining distribution channels, to defining the right price settings, and of course promoting. Those are the classic 4 Ps of marketing. But what you see in all of these definitions is the word customer. And I translate the word customer with the right audience or the right people that you want to interact with. Because marketing does not just apply to commercial companies. And especially in the context of GSEN, it's very important, I think, to focus a little bit on what marketing can do for space communities, for NGOs, not necessarily for profit-making activities. But don't forget about the 4 Ps, because you can translate this into an NGO and a space community definition as well. Now, Steve Jobs said it really nicely, and this is kind of an introduction to how I see marketing. Steve Jobs said, don't talk about the product. People don't connect with technical specifications or features of products. It's rather dull. People connect with stories. People connect with values. People connect with a vision they can see themselves in. And that last sentence is critically important, is people have to recognize themselves in the story that you tell about your company, about your organization, about your initiative, about your product, whatever it might be. But people need to see how they personally, based on their personal values, relate to your story. And they don't care about your products necessarily. All mobile phones look the same. We don't need to talk about technical specs, especially from an Apple point of view. Apple is not about how good their equipment is. Apple is about a feeling that you have, about a brand image, about belonging to a certain community. And Apple has played that really well, making them one of the most valuable companies in the world. And again, it is not based on their technology. Apple's technology philosophy is very simple, saying we make stuff that works. And that's true. And how it works or all the specifications, nobody cares. It's about the story, the brand story, and that's really important. And that's what I'd like to talk a little bit more about, because storytelling is something that we've done for as long as humanity exists, right? This is an example, a French example. As you can see, this is in very old French. But this is like one of the very first notions of a story. And it's a story about a hunt that was drawn up in some cave somewhere in the south of France, to tell the story of something epic that happened about 15,000 years before Christ, 20,000, what am I saying, 17,000 years ago. And that story we can still sort of understand because it's told in a very human way. And that makes the concept of storytelling kind of the heart of marketing. Forget about the 4 Ps, forget about the official definition. Marketing is about how do I tell the story in such a way that it engages my audience, people who may find an interest in what I have to sell or what I do. And storytelling is not so difficult. The basic concept of storytelling is captured in this picture. It's called the hero's journey. And every story that we like and that we pass on from generation to generation, that we watch on Netflix, that we read in religious books, in novels, in everywhere, follows a very simple pattern. It's called the hero's journey. And it's a circular story where a hero is introduced, a mentor is often introduced, a challenge, a call to adventure, if you like, is introduced. And then the hero follows through this challenge, going through a threshold, finding allies, being tested, meeting enemies, fighting an ordeal, as it says here, and ultimately winning and receiving a reward. And everything comes back to the beginning where they lived happily ever after. This is a classic structure of any story, of any good story. Stories in the Bible, stories in the Quran, stories in novels, taken very literally in some cases. I mean, look at these examples that we all love from Hollywood. The Lord of the Rings. It's a typical story of a hero with a mentor, with all sorts of ordeals, who ultimately goes through a challenge, and at the end wins. He gets the hand of the princess. I don't know exactly. The Lord of the Rings ends a little bit different, I think, but he defeats his enemies and wins for the good of humanity. And even worse, I'd say, or even better, is James Bond is the ultimate stereotypical hero, with Q being the ultimate stereotypical mentor. And of course, all the enemies that James Bond meets are your stereotypical bad guys. And in the end, he always wins, and we know how James Bond ends in a very well, maybe 1960s way, where he wins the girl. But all these stories follow the same pattern of the hero's journey. And this is very important for marketing because it sounds like the realm of authors and filmmakers and Bible writers, but no, this is what we all do. If we want to engage our audience, we follow the script. We make sure that the story that we tell is a human story. And that is what marketing is all about. It is humans telling stories to other humans, to engage them emotionally. That is what it's all about. So how do we do that? Let's dive a little bit deeper in some of the theory because we have lots of instruments, lots of channels, lots of tools that are at our disposal to help us tell these stories and to define these stories. So as I said before, marketing is all about connecting, and this is the commercial story again. Sorry, I took this from my commercial introduction, but it's all about connecting customers with the company through stories. And the customers will receive products from the company, they will pay the company for that, and that's how our commercial world works. But the way that we connect customers to companies or the audience to our organization or to our project stakeholders, whatever it is stories. And if we tell the right stories, we engage people with our brand story, if you like, with the story of our organization, and that is important. That is all that marketing is about. It is about storytelling. And of course, storytelling goes in many ways, and what you want is there's many goals, and we'll talk about that a little bit further. But one of the goals is to build a brand, and a brand can be for a company. Of course, we talked about Apple before. They work very hard on their brand image and the brand story that is behind the brand. But every organization does that. And there are ways to build that brand through something called search engine optimization. It becomes very technical now, but it is a way to tell the story on many different channels so that people will ultimately recognize your brand. And I just use, because I did a talk there a few years ago, King's College London, KCL, they have a space society as part of the university that organizes many activities, and I just looked at their brand. So by googling them, see if they appear in the first spot, looking at their social media channels and how that all comes back to the website and the image that they create and the stories that they tell in order to attract people to their society, and that is called brand. And brand is not so much we always identify brand with a logo and a name, but brand is really about a story. We call it the brand narrative. Is what is the story that we tell about our organization to engage people with it, and the logo is just a small part of that. So marketing, again, from a commercial point of view, is all about bringing in, and here it says potential customers, but basically letting people know that we exist and engaging them with our organization. And it's like a funnel. And this is the commercial funnel as it works in many commercial companies, but it's the same for NGOs and for other sorts of organizations. We tell our story to many people, to as many as we can, the top of the funnel. We want to reach as many people as we can. And then we kind of bring them in by telling more and more intricate and relevant story. Of course, we lose people along the way who may not relate to the story. They may not find that personal connection. And that's okay, because ultimately we need to find the people who can add value to our organization. And in commercial companies, they are called customers. They buy our products or they close contracts for our services, whatever it is. But marketing is the top end of the funnel. Is how do we bring the message out to as many people as possible so that we can slowly bring the right people into what we want them to do with us. And this is a strategic thing. Marketing is an element of strategic management of your organization or of your community. And you have to think about these things. It starts with your mission and your vision. What is it that you want to achieve with your organization? That is really the heart of your story. Why do you exist? That is probably the most important story, is the story of your existence. And that is important that you define that very clearly in your mission and vision statement. And this is not just an academic exercise that you do on paper. This is something that forms the heart of how you communicate about your organization. If your vision is clear, and if your mission on how to achieve that vision is clear, then you already connect with people who may have similar visions. Now, that mission and vision trickles down into your corporate strategy, which is your 5-year plan, again, in commercial companies, which trickles down in your marketing plan, where you see how can my marketing and communication activities contribute to this corporate strategy and to ultimately reaching the vision of your organization. And that again trickles down in your communication plan, and that trickles down in all sorts of plans, including a social media plan. And they all relate. So a good social media plan, a good social media strategy directly contributes to achieving the vision of your organization. And if it doesn't, if it's not related, if we do social media just because everybody else does social media, but without a clear plan, then it doesn't necessarily contribute to the vision of your organization. And then you should review it. This is a great way to keep everything in line. And within your communication plan, you have the choice of lots of different channels. And all these channels are of importance to reach people, to reach that top end of the funnel, to bring that message to as many people as possible. And nowadays, we have all these digital communication methods. We have our website, our blog, we do PR, and Suk will to tell us a little bit about specifically on PR. And PR is all about our relationship with the mass media. We have social media, we have our customer relationship management, we have emailings, we have events in the space industry, very important, meeting people, we have merchandise that we all love so much, etc. And there's a whole variety more that I show here. This is the one that I use in my company because this is ultimately what I'm responsible for in my company. And the letters are so small at the bottom because there's so much stuff that we can choose from as a marketeer that we do. So this is basically the same picture that I showed you before. The mission and vision, the corporate strategy, corporate communications and branding strategy, and then it splits into external communication, internal communication, marketing, PR, and at the bottom you see all these different activities, and it's probably hard to read them on your screen, but it covers things like events, newsletters, merchandise, website, social media, search engine optimization, market intelligence, CRM, event management, newsletters, email marketing, advertising, sponsoring, memberships, media relations, press releases, everything. This is what marketing and communications is all about. And you have this massive toolkit at the bottom, these, 15, 20 things that are here, plus a lot more that I have forgotten here, at your availability to tell stories, because all these methods are about telling stories. And one way to do it, this is a very modern view of marketing, is to do that in what we call inbound marketing. And inbound marketing is easy because inbound marketing means that we tell stories and we put them on digital media and we attract the people to us by telling stories that engage emotionally with the stories with the life stories of people themselves, and we try to engage with them. And inbound marketing is about two-way traffic. It is about how modern social media work. And modern social media are very much about social interaction, about having a two-way conversation with your target audience that traditional marketing like advertising and PR and television advertising do not have. We are able now through all these modern digital tools to have a conversation directly with our customers and to interact with them directly. And by putting out content that engages people, that triggers them to interact with us, we bring them into our organization. That is called inbound marketing in a nutshell. I'm not going to go into too much detail of it, but the idea is that you tell stories, that you engage with other people's stories, and try to interest them in your products and services that way. And this happens a lot online right now. This is a picture. I really love this study. We Are Social. If you don't know it, they bring out a report every year, and it started with a few slides. It literally started with 10 slides. Now the report is 700 pages about our online behavior, about global online behavior. They research every country in the world, and they look at how people interact with media. Not just social media, with any media, with television, with radio, with podcasts, with social media, with video, everything. 700 pages. The amount of statistics drives you crazy. But they start with this. This is page 10 of a 700-page report where they say there's 8.25 billion people in the world in October 2025. And 70% of that have a mobile phone. 73% use the internet, and 68% of the world population has a social media account. Now that is crazy. Of course, there's a large percentage that does not have access to the internet. 73% is great. But that also means that 27% of the world population are not connected to the internet. And in 2026, I think that's a shocking number. But 6 billion people that we can reach through digital means is a lot. And there are many different channels, and this is just one of the statistics, page 413 of the report, which talks about the platforms that people use. And we can see that, interestingly, and despite what many people in social media and marketing think, Facebook is still the number one tool that people use to interact on social media in the world. Even though we all say, oh no, it's Instagram, it's TikTok. Yes, they're in the list, but Facebook is still number one. YouTube number two, Instagram is now number three. So these are the channels, and this list is very long. These are just the top 15 or so channels in the world. It is very different from country to country. But for a global marketeer, this is an interesting picture to see, okay, what channels should I be involved in? And just to give you an example, I'm a B2B marketer, business to business. So I talk to business customers in my daily life mostly. For me, LinkedIn is the most important one. But LinkedIn on the global scale, as you can see here, is, what is it, the number 12 or so of the world, with only just over 20% of people saying that they've used this platform in the last month. So maybe not so much, but for B2B in space, this is my most important channel. So the channel that you pick, and I'm not going to go into the theory of that, but the channels that you pick for your message depend very much on where you are, what your message is, and what your target audience is. But nonetheless, We Are Social. If you work in marketing, it's a very interesting view of the digital world. And as I said before, it all starts with a clear vision. And I cannot emphasize this enough, that in your organization, you need to know yourself, but all your colleagues as well, the entire organization. It needs to be crystal clear why we exist. And that's why this vision is so important. This vision is kind of the dot on the horizon, the lighthouse at sea, if you like. That one point where you will go to, that will guide everything you do towards that one goal, that super long-term goal as to why do we exist? Where do we want to be with this organization in 10, 20, 30 years from all I care? That is the point on the horizon. That is the big ideological dream almost that we like to achieve. And the word dream is a good one. A dream is always the start of a good story and a great way to bring people in, um, to describe what it is that you're trying to achieve in your organization or in your community, in whatever it is. And that has to be very clear, your point on the horizon. So spend some time in your organization to define that organizational vision. What is it that we want to achieve? We are here now. Where do we want to be in 10, 20 years? And make it bold, make it big, dream big. Believe big. And I really like this quote by David Schwartz, who says that the size of your success is determined by the size of your belief. So thinking big, even though it feels arrogant, I mean, we all suffer from the imposter syndrome, but the bigger you think, the bigger your achievements will be. This is scientific evidence. If you think about little goals, then you can expect little achievements. If you think about big goals, your success is guaranteed to be bigger. And it sounds weird, but this is how human psychology works. So think big and don't hesitate to talk about it, to share with the world how you're going to change the world. And the more people who don't believe you, is what Professor Jim Dater always said, a truly the most realistic vision of the future is one where everybody thinks that you're absolutely out of your mind, that sounds too ridiculous, and where everybody says you are crazy. What Jim Dater said is then you're probably on your way to achieving something real. And this is in line with that. So think big. Don't let people talk you down. No, think big. If you want to achieve something for the entire nation or for the entire continent or for all I care for the entire world, then by all means do so. The bigger your vision, the better. Now, there's one thing before I will hand it over to Suk, maybe two. Let's see how we do in time. I'm kind of counting on, yeah, doing another 5-6 minutes. And this is an important one for emerging space communities. And I wrote a paper about this. I did some research with people back in 2021 for the IAC in Dubai, where we looked at some lessons for emerging space communities. We specifically researched how space communities around the world, especially in developing space nations, work. And the key word that we found out that plays an important role in bringing your message across is role models. And it's all based on this quote. If you can't see it, you can't be it. And role models are very important. And role models depend very much on the vision that you have, which role models you should use. And role models are your important storytellers, and that's why I put it in this presentation, because we talk about storytelling. It's not just about the story itself; it's also about who tells the story. Because if I go, I'm mentoring a team of people in Rwanda, but if I go to Rwanda and start telling everybody how the world works, the people might not believe me. So if I go out there and be a role model for the local community in an African country like Rwanda, it's not going to work. I'm too old, I'm too white, I'm probably too male, I'm too Western. And they say, yeah, for you it's easy. You grow up in Europe, so we don't believe you. No. So I'm not the right role model for that particular situation. I can be a mentor, but I cannot be a role model. And what you need is, if you want to bring your story across to specific audiences in specific countries or in specific social verticals, then you have to find people who connect with that audience. If you can't see it, so if people cannot see the example that you are in that case for your story, they don't believe they can be that themselves. And if we look at spacefaring nations around the world, we can see that it's very unequally distributed. So the colors, I mean, I put it here, it's a little bit much to read, but we can see that the countries that have no color, like much of Africa, much of Latin America, much of Asia, are countries that do not have, that are not considered spacefaring nations. And the definition of spacefaring nation, this comes from Wikipedia. You can look it up yourself. But it's countries that are involved in spaceflight in one way or another, whether they have launch capacity, whether they have satellites in orbit. Different definitions representing different colors, but we see that there's a large percentage on the map, especially in the global south, that is very underrepresented. And this is where storytelling about space plays an important role, because if your country is not a spacefaring nation, does not have a formal space program, does not have the national role models, if you like, who are leading the effort to build space communities, then it might be very hard for individuals or for organizations to develop that. And that's where these local role models definitely come in. If the role models don't exist, you have to create them somehow, and you can do that by well, in many different ways. I have one or two examples perhaps a little bit later on, but let's go through a few of the slides that I presented back in 2021. Let me move this screen a little bit. So as we said, role models play an important part in engaging students, and the study was a lot about students, and that is what we in GSEN deal with a lot as well, is how can we engage young people with space in countries where space is not the obvious choice. And again, if you can't see it, you can be it. And we looked also at the role of mentors. That's why the GSEN mentoring program is so important, because mentors are a special type of role models, and they can help, as it says here, students pursue a career in space. So a few recommendations for outreach practitioners or for marketeers. First of all, you have to understand your audience. So we talked about the point on the horizon and the relevance of stories, but it's also important when you tell a story to know who you're telling the story to. Who are these people, and what is it that they engage with on a daily basis? What channels do they use? So what channels should I use for my story? Is this a young audience who is very much involved with TikTok and Instagram? Or is it, as I said before, a business to business audience that is much more likely to engage with you on a business channel like LinkedIn? Or is it a much more traditional society that is not connected to the internet at all, and I need to go out to schools to tell my story, for example? There's different ways, and you have to understand the channels that your audience uses, the language that your audience uses, the stories that your audience engages with before you can define your story. That can be online, that can be offline, and you have to identify the local role models, be it national or international, it doesn't matter, but it is important that you find the right people to tell the story. Again, bearing in mind that if you are a member of the audience, if you're a member of the local community, it is much more likely that people will understand the story. If you speak the language of your audience. I mean, we tend to think in space everything happens in English, but of course that's not true. So you have to speak the language of the people. You have to understand the community in order to bring a story to that community in an effective way. And an example that I wanted to mention, and it probably fits here, is a conference that I have been attending in Central America, called the Central American Space Congress. You can look it up. It's going to happen again this September in Guatemala. And what they did is, because they had a lack of local role models, a country like Guatemala and the Central American countries, there isn't a lot happening in space. I'm not saying there's nothing. There are initiatives, and that's why this conference was a big success. But what they did was very smart. They used people who moved away from Central America, who work at NASA, who work at ESA, who do cool stuff abroad and are now coming back to the local community to share their stories and to share how they developed it. And they do that in Spanish. That conference is in Spanish, and they use people who are from the nation. They all start their presentation with, I am from Guatemala and I'm so proud to be back. I've worked at NASA for 20 years and now I'm standing here in Guatemala telling my story to my fellow Guatemalans in the local language, and people connect with that immediately. There's all these students who are thinking, okay, well, Guatemala does nothing in space, but then they see these role models and they become immediate heroes. And that is good because you need a hero for a story, as we just saw. So that worked really well to bring in that diaspora, if you like, of people who went abroad to pursue their career. Those few brave people who are willing to leave their country, to leave their home, to develop a career abroad, and then come back to tell their story. And some come back to stay. We see the example of Astralinto in Ecuador. Matthias Campos, in case you know him. He's a great role model. He went as an Ecuadorian, he went abroad to study and work in the space industry in Germany. And at some point in his career, he thought, I'm going to give back to my country. He moved back to Ecuador, started the first Ecuadorian space company, Astralinto, which is now very successfully expanding worldwide. And it is the de facto space company in Ecuador. And there's many examples like that. Some more recommendations that we found in our study is mentoring, and that's why this GSEN initiative of mentoring is so important. But there's initiatives by the IAF, by Women in Aerospace, by different organizations around the world to mentor space leaders or potential space leaders, space communities. And mentoring is a very effective way to pass this knowledge from one place to another and to create these local role models, if you like.
Remco, just to note, I know I took 8 minutes, so like I add 4 to your 45. So maybe it's if you can wrap up soon as well. Thanks.
To end now. Yep, that is fine, because this is really what I wanted to tell. So I'm going to scroll to here. I was planning on skipping that last bit only if I had more time, but I know myself. I
Remco,
talk
you
too
could
much.
actually take those 5 minutes from me. It's okay, because mine is going to do more, practical do learn approach. So yeah, I can lend my 5 minutes to you. All good.
You know what? Let's keep that to the end and move over to you for now. And then if we have time, we can talk a little bit about what social media can mean for your career. But let's just see how this works. So again, I invite you all to connect with me and to continue the discussion online if applicable. And with that, I'm going to shut up and
So Remco, I think before we go to Suk, if we can maybe just take there are 2 questions like on the chat at the moment, and so if you want to kind of like look and see if you can answer maybe quickly.
Let me do that. Let's see about heroes and how they do it. It's very important for us. If you not only name generally who they would. Yeah, I mean that's not a question. It's more like a remark, I think. But it's very true.
And then there's a question after that from Kasia.
And Katja, hello, nice of you to join. It's good to see you here. A dual role. Let's see. Yes, but that's a personal thing. Let me read the rest of the question. It is very dual, but only because I choose it to be dual. Yeah. Yeah, it's. I mean, these are very powerful statements. So I recommend everybody to read Katja's points in the chat. It is very dual if we make it dual, and to me it's important because I still think that apart from promoting my organization, my company, space has an image problem, and has an image problem both on the positive and on the negative side. And it is important, I think, for all of us in the space community, in the space industry, to make sure that we tell the right story about space. I do a whole separate keynote on this as to why we often tell the wrong stories and why pushing astronauts forward, as you say it correctly here, Katja, why pushing astronauts forward as the spokespeople of space gives the wrong example. Astronauts are not, and I make this very clear, are not the right role model for our industry. Because astronauts, human spaceflight is like 5% of the industry. Yes, it is the most heroic, but if we look at the typical profile of astronauts nowadays, they do not represent that global diversity. Still, they don't. And even though there are efforts to include more women, to include more people from diverse and nationalities, it's still not diverse. And by pushing astronauts forward, we focus very heavily on human spaceflight. And the chances of anyone from any nation in the world to become an astronaut are still extremely small. But the chances of anyone finding a job in the space industry at large, if you work on it, is almost 100%. And that is a message that we don't say. We focus on astronauts, we focus on STEM, so we focus on niches within our industry that, yes, are important, but do not necessarily represent everybody. And I think it's up to all our communicators to make sure that we tell the complete story. And I'm sometimes a little bit annoyed by organizations always pushing astronauts forward to tell these stories.
Yeah. So one
That was only
last
half of the
maybe.
question. Yeah.
So there's from Denholm. There's one question there down below.
Storytelling and product development, this is a very technical question. But marketing is all about storytelling, and product development is about storytelling. It is about, maybe it's a bit technical and maybe it's a bit philosophical as well. But when I create, for example, data sheets for the products that my organization makes, a data sheet, even though it has a whole boring table of technical specifications, it also tells a story. You present a product in a way that you tell the story about the product. You put it in a certain context. You use imagery to to tell a visual story about your product, even though the text itself is very boring and technical. So there's always storytelling involved. And yes, product development is kind of a separate area of marketing, defining the right product for the right audience. But again, it is the product that connects to the story, and the story can be a very commercial story. It is the story about satellite integrators needing certain equipment, and they can't find that equipment, so we make it for them. But it's in a way it's always about stories, but the stories can be very technical. And is it a balancing act? Yes, and the danger, and that we see a lot in space. I mean, you mentioned the danger here. The danger is that we start telling stories about technical specifications, and that the story becomes very technical and very boring, and that we disconnect with our audience. So always keep an eye on the vision and on the why we exist. And I'm going to leave it with this, because each of these questions is a lecture in and by itself.
Yeah.
So, but thank you. These are really relevant questions. So thank you.
Well, thanks so much. And so we're now, thanks so much, Remco. So we're now going to go to Sukruti. I'll give you a little bit of an introduction about Suk. So Sukruti Narayanan is the global head of partnerships and Australian ambassador of an all-female led lunar space mission, ShaktiSat, which is empowering 12,000 girls from 108 countries on free 120 hours of satellite building program. She's the founder of an Australian technology not-for-profit Amers Foundation, which empowers people of all ages in AI, media, emerging fields, robotics, STEM, and space technology. She is an author of 3 books. She's also the co-founder of Frank Factors and heads the PR, sales, and marketing advisory division of the company. And lastly, and not the least, she is the winner of the Young Visionary Award by the Public Relations Council of India in the year 2015. So welcome, Suk.
Thank you, Emmeline. This is wonderful. I have to say, Remco set a very high bar for this conversation. All I could say is, well, if you all have been paying attention to Remco, I'm not required here. I can just, pack my bags and I could be like, hey, it was a great session, because literally, Remco, I have to mention about, 4 big things that I totally resonated with the PR side of things and as space as an industry, right? You were talking about think big, which is very important, because if you're going to say, well, it can be a little tricky, because, you have great dreams, but you have to work for it too. It's not just, big dreams. So in 2024, October, if I had met you and if I had told this, I would think, yeah, I'm really motivated, Remco. And maybe I'd have stopped there because I had someone saying, hey, think big, that's a great start. But for me, with the mission ShaktiSat, it is about empowering 12,000 girls from 108 countries. So 108 girls from each of the 108 countries coming together, learning how to build a satellite. Well, it's quite interesting. I have our Switzerland ambassador, Dusia, joining our call as well. And, this is quite an audacious dream, because now we are in this confusion. Well, why am I doing it for another country? It's not my business. We are like it's an audacious dream. And thank you so much for telling that, because, yes, we need to think big. And once we start acting on it, we have momentum being built. So I'm here to talk about the relation between marketing and PR. very important, like both go hand in hand because you cannot discard one for the other. And you were also talking about speak the language of the people, which is very, very important. And well, I can talk about our space mission where we've translated the 120 hours of curriculum in their local languages. We have local ambassadors talking about why this mission is important for the countries. And I have to congratulate GSEN for an extraordinary work you're doing where, we're in countries where there is no space capabilities, you're working on how to set it up. And I would say we are building the workforce, we're building that technology skill pipeline very ready to go. And I think, it's going to be a wonderful combination to see, how the world is going to look like in the next couple of years. And space is for all. And as I could give a little blur of my journey where, I intentionally put about me winning the Young Visionary Award by the Public Relations Council of India in 2015, because my major is I'm an engineer, electrical electronics engineer. I used to code robots, code quad bots and hex bots. And when I say quad bots, people are like, what is that, Suk? And I'm talking about 2008, 9s. So back in India, when we say all these terms, they're like, what are you doing? I'd be like, well, I'm building 4-legged robots and 6-legged robots. They're like, why are you doing that? You could buy it from the toy store. And I'm like, yeah, interesting. Yeah, I could do that. But I don't like to touch my nose like this. I like to touch it like this and jump it 10 times. So that makes life interesting, hey? So this has been a very interesting journey where all I knew was when I was 21, 22, I accidentally co-founded a not-for-profit called Robotics and Artificial Intelligence Foundation. So this is based in India. We're celebrating 14 years now, and we reached about 500,000 students from 2012 to 2017. And I would say all these things were made possible because of the very minute PR exercises that we were exercising. So my mentors, after a while, they're like, you're very good at PR, Suk. And well, when I come here to Australia and say, hey, I've been practicing PR since 2013, 14, I have people saying, oh, so how do you think the immigration rate is going to look like? Are we going to get more visas? I'm like, okay, it's not permanent residency. I'm talking about public relations because, acronyms are quite interesting and we have different perspectives from people as well. But one thing I see is PR is a very integral part in lives of people. Well, I've been a sales coach as well for Optus because when you move to a country like Australia, no matter what you've done back in India, I had the then president of India as my inspiration. His scientific advisor was in the advisory committee of mine. And you could imagine, working with the key people. You come to Australia, Suk, this is great. You don't have local experience. Okay, so where do I start? Okay, I acted in a movie completely shot in Australia. Well, it's very irrelevant. I think I'm trying to do a little PR for my journey, build credibility, because I think no matter what we do, as Remco mentioned, we have very different paths in life, and spaces for all. We bring that unique experience together, and that makes us very resilient, very unique. Because I have an experience as an actor. I've hosted about 700 shows till date. Well, because my mentor said I was good at public relations, I did my post-graduation. I didn't know what it was. So, we all need that credibility. We need that certificate factor to say, yes, I am this, because I can't believe myself. I'm born with that skill. So I had my degree in public relations, post-graduation in journalism and public relations. And well, I came here. I was acting in a movie, was door knocking, phone banking for unions in New South Wales. Well, I don't have a job, mind you, but I'm doing all this for unions. And then I thought I need a real job. So I joined a telecom company where I joined as a telesales consultant. Well, you might wonder, so what's happening? Well, that was the first job that I ever got in the country. So back at home, though we have fancy name to it, it's a BPO, it's a call center job, and people hated it. Well, I was number one in sales in Sydney, Adelaide, Melbourne, and became sales coach for service team. And for a floor which had 0 sales, I was able to bring 503 sales in just 3 days. So that was a very interesting experiment on testing the resilience of people, talking about growth conversation, and first believing in myself that I could, do these things. Then I thought, when the CEO said you have to do it for Philippines and Mumbai office, no, this is not for me. So I joined a media company as a director for public relations, where I felt I need to highlight the stories of migrants. That is very important. Well, we were there in 3 world record books. Again, result of the PR skills. One thing I learned was you don't need to spend any fat amount of budget for getting your message out. You could always find interesting ways for your news to go out, and PR is more about authenticity and not just spending money, throwing it away and saying, hey, you know what, look at me. No, not required. You could find subtle ways of doing, and I thought I would share about that. And honestly, all these experiences have given me this opportunity of taking this insane role. And I'm the global head of partnerships for 108 countries, and people are like sometimes, so what did you think while you were doing it? Did you have vodka or something? I said, even worse. I don't know what I was thinking, but this mission is paying off. We have over 8,000 girls in our platform studying at the moment, and August 23rd, we are just a few hundred days away, and we are hosted by the President of India. One girl and one ambassador together. We are coming to India to build the physical satellite. It's going to be tested, and we're doing a fundraiser, $1 to the moon. So I'm sharing all this so that if you see Mission Shakti Sat or 12,000 girls from 108 countries, please do remember me and spread the word. That would be a very effective PR, by the way. So let me share my presentation. Okay. Are you able to see that at all?
Okay.
Just one thing. I'll share my entire window and...
Yeah, there you go.
Beautiful. Here we go. You could see this?
Yeah, yes.
Fantastic. So I would make this more interactive, because by end of the day, Remco, you've done you really make me feel a little bad, with the statistics and with the kind of presentation you've brought in. I'm like, wow. I was literally like, what else do I do? What else do I add? But seriously, Remco, great work. And I would like to connect with you post our session. And to all of you here, well, I spoke about Mission Shakti Sat, and I think a one-liner is a very important factor when it comes to PR, because we could say all we want, but people just remember that one line. And maybe I would say in Australia, people see me as that poster lady or that space lady who has the Mission Shakti Sat poster wherever I go, and they remember 12,000 girls, 108 countries, one dream. So that is what people remember. So I would say it is always nice to have your one-liner. So we will come to that exercise very soon, where I want each one of you sharing your how your one-liner looks like to describe yourself or your company. But before that, I thought I'll ask a question. How many of you have WhatsApp? You use WhatsApp? How do I see these responses? Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Remco. With the others, I think your videos are turned off, so I can't see you all. So, well, maybe if you can type yes or yes. Thank you, Mariana. So, actually, I liked Mariana and Denholm's question, and I thought, yeah, I will add something, but I'll do it at the end. And yes, most of us do, right? Thank you, Denholm. We all use WhatsApp. So, I would take PR with an example, with a WhatsApp example, right? When in your family group, if you're going to say, hey, you know what? I really did well. This is my achievement. Do you think people really like your extended family and everyone, do they really respond? Yes, maybe. But when your aunt says, hey, you know what? Suk has done an extraordinary job. did you have a look at this? And we were like, okay, what did she do? Why is she talking about, Suk's work? What has she even done, for this aunt to praise her? So the heads turn. So I think the main difference between marketing and PR is, well, in marketing you say, hey, I've done this. Can you have a look at this? Look at the great work I've done. But in PR, it's about someone else, totally a different person telling what you've done. And especially when you're not in the room and, when people talk about you, well, in a good way, I think that's important. So good way or bad way, whatever way that people are going to talk about you when you're not there. So that is PR, and that makes it very strong. Okay. Cool. So this is Mission Shakti Sat, and I told you my one-liner is 12,000 girls, 108 countries, and one dream. So now, if anyone is ready, let us make it more interactive, where I would like to, ask you all just one-liner. You could type, or, maybe you could unmute, and we have a lot of time. I'm going to make it interactive. So we could go one-liner. What do you do? So I think that would help with the icebreakers. Maybe Remco, I'll start with you because you've already spoken. I'm sorry to put you on spotlight, but. Okay, you want to go next, Graham? Or you want to go now?
Yeah.
Remco, are you ready? No?
Can you repeat that? I was distracted for just a second.
No worries. So I was for the next few minutes, we're going to have this interaction on a one-liner of what everyone does. So that would give that strong, powerful intro, or that PR messaging mode. And then, we will have other exercises. So Remco, one line of what you do.
So Suk, also there's already some on the chat.
Yeah,
there's
okay. Stuff happening in the chat, so that's good.
Beautiful.
But this is about us personally, right? Not as a company, but as a person.
It can be anything. It can be you or a company, like, what you do. So maybe I would listen to all that and I'll come back to you if you're not ready. Graham was ready, actually. He raised his hand. So yes, Graham.
I like to try and inspire young people.
Nice. Okay. But has the big dream as well and inspire young people. Okay. I'm actually having, enabling space enablers around the world. Thank you for that, Emmeline. That's amazing. Gabriella is Star Logics. Okay. Bringing space to a place that longs for it. Okay. I might, if it's okay, Gabriella, I might, I like actually that lines, and we might work on your lines more in the coming few minutes. And Gabriel, system engineer for AI data centers, astronomy, and space enthusiast. Beautiful. Wow. Eric, building a Star Trek universe. Love it. Okay. And he's a software engineer. Then home I model system. How's that? Really fascinating. And Remco's space agenda aims to be the #1 global event calendar for all space professionals. I love it. And Mariana, I'm a social media manager, tech enthusiast, advocate for ending child marriages, event management, but mostly I'm a tech marketer. That's interesting. I think, you're an advocate for ending child marriages. I think that stood out, right? Where we are talking about space, we are talking about tech. I would say whether it was intentional or not, that was PR in it, because PR is more about trust building and authenticity, right? It's about who you are, what you want to do. And I feel, yes, that one came out very different. And that's nice. Mariana, more power to you. Amazing. So these are our one-liners, right? So this is who we are. And PR is more about the consistency, what we do with this messaging. Because if this is us, what are we doing? It's like you're playing the James Bond in a movie, right? And then it's about having that consistency of, you can't suddenly become someone else, right? If you're the Bond, you will be the Bond. You will have your actions that would resonate with being the Bond. You can't be someone else, and you kind of expect people to see you as a James Bond, right? So yes, public relations, what is it? So it is about building trust. And as Remco was mentioning, like when it comes to communication, when it comes to marketing, it's like a whole lot, like, inbound, outbound, you have whole heaps of things. So even with PR, I would say we could go, for a wider spectrum, where when we say public relations, okay, it's as simple as building trust. But what happens when things are not in your favor? What happens when you are there for wrong reasons in the media? It goes viral and someone picks you up for things that you have not done. So, we call spin strategies. We have, how we deal with, say, negative PR. So interestingly, last month, I was part of the debate where all PR is good PR, and well, we won. Mainly for the facts that, PR is, yes, about building trust and authenticity, but it's also about how do you use the attention, the limelight, which is on you. Because we had the naysayers telling, well, people, you can't do the things, when you have negative PR, it takes like millions of dollars to actually combat. And if you look at the Lego example, if you're going to look at the Pepsi's example, like you could take a lot of examples. PR is more about, yes, you have, whether it's positive or negative, you're going to have attention on you and how you're going to be, say, if you've made a mistake, it's about how you acknowledge that. We'll talk about it, in the next coming slides. So I thought I'll give the statements to you, and I thought I would ask what it means, right? PR. Oh, well, yeah, press release. It's not an acronym for that, but yeah. So the more the press releases you have, it means you have like greater PR. And when we say PR, it's about, yeah, we have your spotlights. We have you getting featured in the media. That's great. And PR is all about promotions. How does it sound actually? You can type, or you can unmute and speak. Yeah, this is what, by end of the day, this is what PR looks like. Do you all agree?
Can be a wide definition, can be a narrow definition. Yeah, and it depends.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Remco. But to be honest, all these things are not PR. It is, what we think PR is, because, yeah, in a day, roughly, there are about 10,000 press releases being made every single day. And only 20 to 30% gets picked up. So, PR is not just, yes, I've given the press release, people are picking it up. No. So what I feel is the actual PR is one which has a very clear narrative. People are not confused with your messaging. You could do 100 different things, right? But by the end of the day, if you're able to tie it down to one particular thing, because, yeah, when we say marketing, when we say PR, there are so many elements to it. But what is all that tied down to? It is your cause that is very important. And when we say PR, why do we remember like very key names? For example, I would say, I would like to show these. I would like to spell these brands and ask you what comes to your mind. What do you think about Tesla? I have wide smiles there and grins there. What have you noticed about Tesla? What do you think about them? Well, we're not going to go to the Elon Musk debate yet, but when you think of Tesla, what's happening with them? Am I having any chats popping up? Yes. Innovative, luxury, okay. Pioneering, expensive, beautiful.
Leading
Tesla is
edge.
pioneering driving. Okay. Sorry, Graham?
Leading edge.
Yes, absolutely leading edge. And if you notice one thing about Tesla, have you ever seen Tesla ads? No ads for Tesla. So Tesla, interestingly, Elon posts, he just tweets, now in his own platform in X, the former Twitter. That is where he just tweets about Tesla. You get the updates, you get all the messaging happening there. But we did not have a commercial. We did not have ads. going on with Tesla. And with SpaceX, what makes them what makes them unique? It's not because it is owned by the famous Musk, but what makes SpaceX very unique? Have you all thought about it? Yes, they launch so many satellites, all that is different, but yes, Graham, please.
Elon was very forward thinking into the future, what the future needed.
Thank you for that. Actually, you're giving a different, you're giving these inputs which I can use for my other section as well. Yes, talking about Elon, yeah, he's seen as a forward thinker. And what else? Why SpaceX is literally spoken by so many people? Well, what happens when there is a launch happening? Have you ever seen any other platform doing a live stream of their rocket launch? Whether it's going to be a failure or a success, we don't know. But SpaceX very boldly involves all the public. And I think, for the previous exercise, we were called for media, and there is this media badges. These are the, literally everyone from the world can, get the footage, and we're all, introduce a new way of agile manufacturing. Failure is an option. Yeah. So with SpaceX, it was more inclusive and authentic, right? Because whether it's going to kick off or fail, no one knows, but the public has access. And I would say that with ChatGPT as well. Have you seen ads for ChatGPT? They just gave it to the users, and we are talking about it. Oh, this is horrible. Well, this feature is really good. We use this for this. So they let the people use it and tear it into pieces, tear it apart. So this is one of a very effective PR strategies because, we might always not have a lot of funding, right? Because when we talk about funding, it's a problem. It's a universal problem. We always have limited funding. And how can we make the best out of the scenario? Well, PR is the solution. So showing up consistently is a very important PR exercise as well. And I'll talk to you in a bit about what I mean by that. And have you ever experienced, I should not ask this, having IAC and other big events where you spend so much and, you can't just end up talking only to 5 people. You need to exchange cards with as many as you can. You need to, talk with, as many possible. But normally, like yesterday, I was at an International Women's Day event. Well, if you're wondering, it's on March 8th. What are you doing, sir? The whole month is IWD. So we're talking about balancing scales. I'm invited as speaker to talk about give to gain. Yeah. So I think because of my mission Shakti Sat, we are there talking to give to gain. So with building strong relationships, why is it important? Because you can give your cards to as many as possible. So this is one of the tactics or one of the core principles of PR, where you get to know a person, because it's about personal relationships. So PR, I would say, it's not just the press releases, it's a personal relationship that you have with people. It's about what you remember, when they told you something last time, what do you remember about what they told? And are you able to, talk about it even 5 years later? Are you one of the exercises, I would say, I know we can't do it now because it'll take forever, but I would give one key exercise to each one of you to reach out to a contact who you've never contacted for the last 10 years. Oh, okay, 5 years, maybe 10 years might be too much. So last 5 years, you've not reached out to them. I want you to take this as an exercise and say, hey, I'm reaching out to you today. Say something nice about them. So it's about them. It's not about you. That is what PR is. So say something nice. Or even if you have nothing nice to say, I had a PR session. You came to my head. Well, you could say it was run by Suk. She's heading an all-female Little Earth space mission. Well, don't do all that. But please, as an exercise, you reach out to someone who you've never, ever spoken for the last 5 years, and you could actually see how many opportunities turn up. Because interestingly, we think, we do not have opportunities. It's very tough market. We're not able to crack things. No, all the opportunities are right under your nose. And it's just that we are too focused on marketing about our own initiatives. So when you just talk only about your initiative, right? So what happens? The other person might not even be interested. It just goes off their head and they're like, oh, enough of your mission. I would honestly tell you this. It happened to me while I was debating. I had, we were three of us. And, well, we were in the same team. All PR is good PR. Well, I know this is not from a really nice place from the other person, but when each of us were discussing what do you do and all that, I said I'm with a space mission, all female. And even before I could start, she was like, "Suk, all I hear is this. I'm not interested in space." I was like, okay, yeah, sure, but this is what I do. Maybe she was having a bad day. I'm like, okay, I'll let it go. And interestingly, in that debate, I got whole 5 minutes to talk about this mission. And when I spoke about it, then she was like, Suk, I'm really super sorry. I didn't know that you're running such a thing. And how can I help? So why I'm sharing this is that is when it actually hit me. It's not just about me and my space mission. So usually nowadays, I take time, I take a back seat. When someone asks, what do you do? I would like to first ask the other person. Because in sales, we learned one of the sweetest words that one can have ever hear. What do you think it is? A sweetest word for any person in the entire universe. What do you think it is? Yes, Graham?
Your own name?
Are you into sales? Yes, you're spot on. It is your own name. So every time I had 225% to target. Well, I'm not making this a sales session. I know it is PR session, but I think all these things, sales, marketing, PR, everything goes hand in hand. And well, I was able to have 225% to my sales target just because I paid attention. I called the person, I called my customers by their name every time. I'll write down their name. If I hear a baby crying, if I hear any other cues, I just pick it up because it's very, very important. So PR is about the small cues that the other person gives and how you're able to pick it up. And if you're going to use it in the conversation, it's about the other person feeling valued. And trust me, this person is your advocate. They're going to go all out to talk about, hey, you know what? Suk really did a fantastic job. It's about making the other person feel good. That's it. Maybe listen to them. So that's what I mean by having 5 strong relationships is super important. So yesterday I went to a conference. Yeah, I stopped it halfway. So I knew not a single person there. So I was just talking to the person next to me. I said, yeah, we were just chatting. And I asked her, what do you do? She said something interesting that she works in the space sector on the incubation side. And then when I shared my card, I said 12,000 girls, 108 countries. She's like, wow, so this is amazing. And I took selfie. I took her permission, took selfie. And now she's booking about 2 sessions for me for her incubator. And there is like, I think $100,000 grant pitching prize. I didn't know. I had no idea about it. And she's like, Suk, you have to pitch there. I'm like, who are you? I didn't know you at all. And all I did was, yeah, I said, thank you. You really made me feel welcome because I know no one here. I just told her that. And she's like, no, Suk, it's so good to see you. It's my first time too. There we go. So have that connection with people. And it's really, I'm not sure if I'm going to land up with the $100,000, but the opportunity to that really means a lot, right? So I thought we'll talk about the 5 golden rules of modern PR. The reason I say it as modern PR is because, yes, a traditional way of PR is about, newspaper releases, have the press releases. It's a little different way of how we used to do before. But the modern rules, though the principles might be the same, but the mediums, how we approach it is a little different. And if you really would love to know more about PR, the new rules of marketing and PR by David Meerman Scott, this is really amazing. Though we have few interesting books by the PR Evolution by my very good friend, Maxim Behar. So he is the president of the World Communication Forum. So I used to be global manager. Yeah, last minute I couldn't add his name. I'm really sorry. But with the new presentation, Emmeline, I'll just update that and I'll share the new lot. So yeah, if you have time, please have a read on these materials that I will be sharing, so that it'll make an interesting read and you'll understand more about how PR works. My first rule would be, you are the media. Simple as that. You don't have to pay like millions of dollars, $100,000. I don't have the budget. How do I make my word go out? Not required. You are your own media. So earlier, when we say PR, it depends on the newspapers, the press releases, the TV ads, the jingles. So yes, though it comes as marketing, but we have other ways that PR is promoted that way. We have a lot of PR agency as well doing this. I know my PR friends would be sook. What is that? But honestly, I feel we are our own media, because what you show up. So talking about Graham, you had, when I spoke about Tesla, you mentioned, no, when I spoke about SpaceX, you mentioned about Elon, right? So literally, Elon has become, he owns multiple companies, but he is an image himself, right? He acts as his own PR. So if he tweets, there are so many looking at it. And nowadays we have a lot of influencers. And one of the questions that Cassia asked, right? Promoting space itself, like, we are working on promoting the space as a field in itself. And I know there is a lot of work to be done. And how does that happen? If we are able to be our own powerhouses, show up consistently, share very insightful information that's important. And Denholm was talking about the storytelling versus the product development. And yes, as much as we see there might be dangers and disadvantages here, I feel you could make it more fun. People don't understand the key terms, right? It goes over the head. How can you make it your USP? How are you going to break it down into an interesting way? For example, I have a satellite at home. It is called the Varatasi, the Australian-built satellite. If you're wondering, Suk, what are you doing with it? It should be in the museum, not in your home. Well, I got an opportunity to speak on 14th, on last Saturday, where I wanted to take AI session for seniors. And I had the organizer, it was with Rotary, and I had the organizers ask, Suk, you're talking about satellite. Can you bring some model? Can we see that? I'm like, okay. So AMIS is a foundation that I founded recently. And for the foundation, one of our advisors from the space tech pillars, he's a lead of the Australian-made or Australian-built Varata seed. So all I had to do was just ask him, hey, Professor Eva, can you just lend me your satellite? He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, your satellite engineering model of it I saw the other day. He's like, no one has asked this, Suk, and I haven't taken it to my home myself. I'm like, okay, you could maybe after I do. And he gave it to me. And once I had that, I was like, okay, I have this model. What am I going to do? I recently won, or I recently got a spotlight for the International Women's Day as a women's spotlight for SBS, which is a special broadcasting service. So it is a federal media organization based in Australia. And I knew a little earlier that I'm going to have the satellite with me at home. So I asked SBS, hey, they just love my journey and everything. And I was like, can we have Taking Science to Society series? They said, let's think about it. And all I had to do was tell the producer of the show that honestly, genuinely from heart, I felt he was amazing. He's been in the media for like 30 years. And all I had to do was pick up the cues that he told, and I just had to repeat those lines saying, hey, what you said was, and again, it should be from your heart and genuine. You can't just say, hey, you know what? You look like Katy Perry. No, come on. You know how the other person look. You look like Brad Pitt. Seriously. They'll be like you're mocking at them, right? So it's all about being genuine, being authentic. And after that discussion, it was a 30-minute conversation, but it ended up to be about 3.5 hours. And the producer was happy. He said, okay, I'll give you 4 episodes to take science to the society. Let's see what comes out of it. it's such a huge deal for anybody to be on the SBS special broadcasting service in Australia. So now I have the story from Eva that I'm going to have the satellite. So I wanted to lock that with the SBS. I'm like, hey, can I bring satellite so that we'll have Satellite to Society episode? He's like, real satellite? I said, yeah. So this actually acts as a PR, not only for the space industry. I'm taking Satellite to Society. And interestingly, for the next 10 days, I have booked the council venues. I've involved the local councillors. I'm taking satellite to the various schools. And through this, I know I've connected with the various principals, like various organizations. And all I see here is opportunity. And it's about PR. It's not about me. If I'm going to say, hey, I want to talk about Mission Shakti Sat, or I'm going to talk about, 12,000 goals, empowering this and that, they'll be like, Suk, we don't have time. But I felt it is about taking satellite to the society. And definitely, I am going to talk about Mission Shakti Sat. And I'm going to talk about the book that I've launched as well, where I'm highlighting the stories of about 22 women so AIMERS is my foundation. So AIMERS stands for, it's an acronym for empowering communities of all ages in AI, media, emerging fields, robotics, and space technology. So, well, I see these satellite exercises as a PR for my foundation as well, which the university is really happy, because I'm talking about this to various schools, to various community organizations which the university could have never imagined to reach out. So this is power of PR. And now I've bagged opportunities with other universities where I say, if you have any artifact sitting in, at the uni, send it to me. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to, take, these information to the public. And the public are super enthused, because I had one of them asking, well, Suk, how are you going to bring satellite, to the council hall? It'll be long and pointed. I'm like, well, that's a rocket. It's not a satellite. And this is why, I want to take satellites closer to the society, to the communities. So, if you have very complex, idea that we are bringing to life, I see that as your marketing content right away. You could actually break it down into very interesting areas, involve the public. So, well, people talk about it. Plus, they will market your ideas for you.
So just to note, I know that we've kind of like went over the time already, but we'll just we'll keep going, because I know we're recording this, so I know that some people might drop off, but we'll just keep going for people who can actually stay. Thanks.
So for the ones who are leaving, below is my name, Suknarayanan. Please connect with me in LinkedIn and support our Mission Shakti Sat in whichever way possible. It's not just the donations, but you could spread the word, you could share it, you could do anything. So yeah, for the others who are staying, I think this is the crux of the content. So I would just cruise through really quick from here. So content drives visibility. So if there is no content, if people can't find you, well, yeah, there is no PR at all. There is no marketing, there is no nothing. Because if, you're going to invest so much on one particular ad or one particular thing, saying you're the thought leader, and if, there is only one piece that you've written on thought leadership, well, that is a very bad PR, or it doesn't, it shouldn't work that way. You need a lot of credibility backing why people, look at you, why they promote you, why they follow your work. That's very important. And speak to buyers and not media. So as I was mentioning, find who your target audience is, and it is to them that you need to talk. If they don't understand, that is the biggest blessing, because if they understand, they would look for other competitors, and they would be, they are already in the game. So if people do not understand, especially with the space sector, we're building something for the, yes, space is current. I always say it is not the future, but people think, well, it's not for me. Why is my tax money going for satellite building? And all I have to do is ask people, do you ask, hey, Google, what's the weather today? Do you use maps, GPS, or are you taking a printout and, are you referring to it while you're driving? So space is everywhere. It is current. So people slowly are getting enthused about it. So our PR activities, our marketing, our sales activities will drive that interest towards why people come and buy our products. And real time matters, very important, because you can't give a very old news, outdated news. For example, I can give you an example for real good PR. When it is raining and it's flooding, right? When people say, hey, I have plumbing services, come, you can avail my services for 10% discount, 20% discount. No, that is not a great way. But if you have a local plumber saying, hey, is your pipes leaking or anything, you could call me 24/7 anytime. I can give you a free assessment of what's happening. And obviously that is PR because he's giving a value to that situation. He's making use of the situation as well, like how I'm making use of the satellite at home. That's a very different story. But you will not come across as you're marketing it or you're just, promoting yourself. But, when you're going to value add, people are going to recommend you for, go, this plumber is a great person to go for. So you need that. That actually drives a lot of traffic and business. And authenticity wins trust anytime. So trust is a currency in PR. You can never beat it. If someone says, yeah, this person is good, well, we all will try that person. And if they say, hey, you know what, it's okay, you could shop around. Even if they think you're good, you know what, I'm going to give my service for free. And people are like, no, 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 I don't want to buy it now. Simple. That's what you're going to hear from people. So I was talking about the PR during crisis, which I already touched upon, where it's very important that when you have unexpected PR, when things go negative, don't panic, accept that, yes, there was a mistake that happened and we are trying to fix this. And this particular statement goes a very long way rather than saying, no, I don't think so, this is a wrong perspective, or it's not going to help beating about the bush. So the key stats of PR, well, it's all about the trust earned media over advertising. So advertising doesn't work much anymore, though it is a $1 trillion industry. Every year we have $1 trillion in the advertising sector. Well, subtle PR and media which carries authentic, people can know if it's going to be a published feature or a genuine article coming out in a subtle way. So that's very important. And 81% of people research online before trusting a brand. We don't go and buy things straight away. And these are the facts from, PR Newswire, from Nielsen. And I mentioned earlier, over 10,000 press releases every day, and only 20 to 30% gets picked up. And 82% of people trust a company more when leadership is visible. So as Abram was mentioning, he talked about Elon Musk, and when we said SpaceX, Tesla. So it's very important, whether it's a small brand or a big brand, for you to show up as a leader. So people can, this person owns this and I know them. That's important. And your content will drive 3 times more leads than, your paid ads. So, we need to generate good content and that gives more value. And that's pretty much, these are my details. So I will call it a wrap, or do I take questions? Do we have questions?
Yeah, there are some questions, or at least there's one that I can see here from Manzi.
Okay. I'm trying to look at, so can I stop sharing the screen?
Yeah.
Have you taken a photo?
So I can just select. So if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned the saying all PR is good PR. In some industries like music, negative publicity can make more people check out your work. Can the same be said for the space industry? All PR is good.
Well, I wouldn't, it's a very nice question. And if I were to answer this, I wouldn't compare space industry with music industry, because I know you've just taken it as an example. On a lighter note, what I see is already space industry has a negative PR going around. Oh, it just burns the taxpayers' money. They don't have accountability. They just take all our money and poof, it's gone. They're just hanging around. That's what people think. $3.2 billion in Australia has been tanked a budget towards science and space tech, just because the common people think they have nothing to do with PR. Actually, that's going to be my PhD work as well. So we're working with CSIRO and other organizations. So interestingly, yes, for all PR is good PR. This can be seen as one of the, it's like hitting, how do I put it? Negative PR. I would define negative PR as hitting a sixer in a no ball. Because the reason is, if you know to handle it, if you're able to spin the tail, right? People will only talk about, they'll be like, look how much they mocked at this person, or because I remember seeing Elon's older video where he almost cried to the media. He had tears in his eyes saying, you know what, I'm trying to build this. I think it was like 15 years ago or something. I'll try to pick it up and publish in my social. So that was very powerful. Because they're like, oh, what are you doing? Is it even true? I think when his initial satellites, rockets actually failed, they burnt up. So he had tears in his eyes and he's like, I'm doing my best. This is PR. The spotlight will be on you. So attention is a key. And what you do with that attention, if you're authentic, you could spin your tail very well and drive your PR. So yeah, in a way you could call that as a PR gimmick too. I'm stopping the share so that, yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, both Remco and Suk. This is really amazing webinar, and like I personally learned quite a lot as well. So I know that we're really over time now. We are going to share the videos and the PDFs as well of the presentations to kind of like later. And so just for me to wrap up, because I know that there are at least several people here who are not GSEN, but also just to let people know. So the next upcoming NetConnect is actually next month on the 14th of April. So the NetConnect for GSEN, these are informal networking sessions that we kind of like really talk to each other and help each other out. So that's one thing to note. And then lastly, again, for those people who are not GSEN members, being a GSEN is free. And we have different categories of being a member. You can be an organization, or you can be an individual. You can either be a core member or a member that is really just focused on a specific project or initiative, or you can just be an observer and be participating in some of the networking things that we do, just like these webinars. But what's really important here is that, as I said in the beginning, we differentiate in ourselves because we are space enablers. We are like trying to actually catalyze ecosystems where there is none, or if there are ecosystems that we need to grow. And so that's the main differentiation. So if you are, we'd love to have you be part of the community. So I think I'll kind of like end there. And again, thank you everybody for joining tonight or this morning or this afternoon, and hope to kind of like see you again in the next either initiative or workshop or webinar.